Thank you for choosing adilas. This is a tutorial on how to assign user permissions to employees or vendors or possibly CPAs or whomever that you wish to log into the system. So from the main switchboard homepage, you would go under System Management and you would choose Add, Edit, Payees, and Permissions. Once that page loads, and I do have another tutorial that covers the payee permission homepage, but once that permission loads, or once that page loads, you're going to see all the names of the people that you currently have assigned to your system. And to edit one of those people's permissions, you would click on the person and then you would scroll down, and underneath here is where you have all of the different permissions for that. So we're going to actually go back to the main page for the main home page, and we're going to go to the link here at the top. To add a new person, you would click on Search and Add, and then what you would do is you would choose, say you want to set up an employee, and I'll just put in something random in there like their last name. When it doesn't find that person, then you can add payee to the system. I want to explain one thing at this point too. If you have more than one company set up under adilas, and you can have a multitude of companies, different companies that are tied to different EIN numbers. If you have those companies set up underneath adilas, and say you have Joe Smith already in one company, if you are able to log into both companies, so if you're the owner or a manager with the ability to, when you first come into the company, you would have where it says to switch companies, and you're able to switch between companies. If you're able to switch between both companies, you can actually assign Joe Smith to the other company by searching for, finding his name, and he'll show up down here. Joe Smith would show up, and then you would assign permissions to this company. And what that does is that bridges the companies for Joe so that he or she are able to sign in to either company using only one username and password. But to set up a new person, you would click on Add New User Payee to the system. So in that case, if you find yourself on this screen, you're actually going to be assigning that person a new username and password. But this would be like for a new person, so you would fill in their first name, last name. Any of these fields that have an asterisk need to be filled in. When you get down to username, this is a case sensitive field, and you can use upper, lowercase, and letters, numbers, and symbols, as well as in the password field. And this allows you or your user, your employees, to develop a very strong username and password. You also additionally have where you would want to set, if you want to flag them for a 1099, you want to flag them here. You can also put in a start date, and you also want to select their time zone. Because we serve clients all across the United States, we have to interact with different time zones so that our server is able to record the proper time for like payroll and things of that nature. So you would select whatever time frame that your company lies in, and then you would also, if you want them to be in the salesperson list, you can click here. One thing as well, this name salesperson is dynamic, so if you want that to say consultant, you can go to the corp-wide settings page and change that to consultant. Once you have that filled out, and of course the employee will be active at this time, you would come down below, and then this starts to get into the permissions. We have a PDF version of the printable permissions, and you may want to print that out and have that so that you can reference to that. The permissions do change from time to time. As we add new elements and new features into the system, the permissions change, so you may want to come back and review this from time to time, because we do make a lot of updates, and sometimes you will have permissions that you actually have had for a long time that have never been turned on, other features. So it's good once in a while to come back and look at this page and see. Underneath this printable permission, you have the basic colors that we use to identify what the permission is all about. Yellow is typically where you can give that to everyone. That's basically the ability to clock in and out, to change their user username and password, and also to view their hours and their history. Sales is typically what a person will need in sales, although you may want to cull a few of those permissions down depending on what features you want them to be able to have. And then manager is blue, and so on. Accountant, corp admin, and specialty is silver. It's important to understand that silver sometimes limits permissions from people. So silver can sometimes be a negative permission, if you will. So just so you know, really read what it says about silver. Below here is your selects. If you select yellow, it's going to turn on all of the yellow ones below in the fields down below here. At green, you can see that if I click green, the green goes on. It's important to note too that if you do have a person, an employee, and you have to let them go or they leave and you want to turn off their permissions, all you got to do is come onto their page and click on deselect, and it will unclick all of the check marks below. So that turns off all their permissions, and then you can further make them inactive, but you usually want to make them inactive after payroll. So if they're in your payroll processing and they leave or you fire them, you just want to click on deselect, and that'll turn all their permissions off. And then later, after they've ran through payroll, you want to come up here and make them inactive. Below this is all the permissions, and each one of these has a really good description over here on the side of what that entails. And I do have a lot of other tutorials that go through all of these different areas. But basically what you'll see is you'll see these quick links. So the system search is related to the system search, system basics, time and request, and so on, all the way through. And you also have a link here for the bottom of the page. So once you get to the bottom of the page, you can simply click on Add Payee, and that will add that person into the system. And I'm going to jump back up to the top of the page, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to the main page here, as this is concluding our user permissions. And so what I've done is I've gone from the main switchboard homepage down under System Management to manage employees and permissions. That takes me to all of my employees that I have permissions, and once again I have another tutorial that covers the payee permission homepage where I talk about how to edit, what these different links and everything all in here through here mean. But to add a new person, you just go to search and add a payee in the database. So that concludes how to add a new payee, and thank you for using adilas.